Good morning. Welcome to Sundays with Brother Barry Scott. We are in the midst of a series on the great stories of the book of Daniel. You really find those in the first 6 chapters. The rest of the book of Daniel is geared towards prophecy, very important prophecy. But you find these great stories in chapters 1 through 6, and we are ready today for chapter 3. I don't know of any story out of the book of Daniel that probably is better known than the 3 Hebrew children in the fire. And so my sermon title today, God with Us in the Fire. Now, once again, very long chapter 3. I could focus a little bit on the first part, but I'm really kind of moving past that, so I'm not going to start reading in this 3rd chapter to verse 8. Let me just back up and preface. Chapter 2, Nebo has a dream. Daniel is able to tell him the dream and the interpretation. It's a dream about the rise and fall of empires and the eventual triumphant kingdom of God. Great dream. And in that dream, it is revealed to Nebuchadnezzar that he is the head of gold. And you know, like a lot of people, he has selective hearing. And apparently once he heard that he was the head of gold, that's what he fixated on. And so somehow it came to him, hey, boy, wouldn't it be a wonderful idea if I just erected this large golden statue of myself. And so that's what you find he's done in verses 1 through 7. But I'm picking up now with verse 8. At that time, some Chaldeans came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You've issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship is going to be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you've set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were brought before the king, and he said to them, "Is it true that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, if you're ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. His attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them in the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, the furnace so hot, that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." He said, "Look, I I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. So they came out of the fire. And the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their head singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who had sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. And then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. God with us in the fire. It was late in the evening in a hospital room. A son and a daughter were crowded around their elderly mother. She's scheduled for surgery the next morning. A very critical surgery, one that is absolutely necessary if her life is going to continue, but one that has great rate. In fact, the surgeon has been honest to say that there's a possibility that she's not going to survive. The daughter is going to spend the night. The son is going to come back early in the morning. And so when visitation hours are over, he bent over, kissed his mother on the cheek, and he said, Now, Mother, everything is going to work out. I believe that. Our church is praying for you. My sister's church is praying for you. You're going to be just fine. He started to walk out of the room when he heard his mother say, Wait a minute, son, even if it doesn't, I'm still going to be just fine. I think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could have amen that remark. The realization that God is God no matter what, that nothing can separate us, that we belong to God whether we live or die. Such was the faith of Daniel's friends that they make one of the greatest statements of faith in all of Scripture. Now, Nebuchadnezzar let his pride get the best of him. One of his weaknesses, he was prone to take bad advice. He set up an image of gold 90 feet high, 9 feet wide, so 9 stories tall. He commanded that when the band began to play, everyone fall down and worship the statue. Who knows, but the statue may have borne a striking resemblance to the king himself. The king probably considered bowing down to his statue the equivalent of taking a pledge of allegiance or loyalty. He can see no reason but insubordination for a refusal to do as requested, and therefore he doesn't hesitate to decree a brutal punishment, death by being thrown into a fiery furnace. Now this story centers around Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but the obvious question, where in the world is Daniel? I mean, Daniel's sure not going to bow before the statue. We don't know where he is, and we aren't told. Was he somewhere else doing the king's business? Was he so highly favored that he was above accusation? But I want to tell you something. The fact that Daniel, the hero of the whole book, is not there supports the authenticity of this account. You know, the great thing about Scripture, the Bible writers always tell it just like it was. They don't gloss over, they don't leave out inconvenient facts. You see, if this were just fiction, why would the hero of the book be dropped out here? Doesn't make any sense. You know, a lot of these Bible critics, and Daniel is one of the most attacked books of the Old Testament. You know, they'll question a lot about the book of Daniel. One thing they don't, though, seem to get in their head, had there not been a Daniel, then why in the world was he invented in the first place? If he wasn't actually a historical person, why do you just come up with him over here in Babylon? The king, Nebuchadnezzar, has all of the dignitaries of Babylon. I mean, anybody is here at the opening ceremony. This is going to make the front cover of the VIP magazine. And he makes the crowd an offer they can't refuse. They had a choice between bowing down to the statue or being thrown into a blazing furnace, and that's a pretty easy choice for most. Thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, fell on their faces. 3, and only 3, stood up for what they believed. They would not bow, bend, or burn. Their defiance was reported to the king, and he was determined to make them. The king challenges them to change their mind. He gives them a second chance. Now, apparently, he thought very highly of these 3. He didn't want to have to throw them into the furnace. There's no saying, opportunity may knock, but only once, but temptation is going to knock again and again. The answer that they give the king is a high water mark of faith and courage. So let's look at it again. Verse 16 through 18. Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Wow. In other words, they were willing to trust their Heavenly Father regardless of the outcome. They were willing to be thrown into a fiery pit and trust God with the results. These 3 men had a God-centered faith. It wasn't dependent on deliverance, but God's care regardless of the outcome. Their faith needed no defense. Their minds were made up. They were committed regardless of where it would lead them. Their problem with what the king was asking them to do was worship. They refused to participate in idolatry. They would not bow to false gods or make God bow to them. As I think about this, these guys had all kinds of reasons, excuses at their disposal why it would have been in their best interest to compromise. They could have said, well, now look, if we get ourselves killed, who's going to look out for the welfare of the Jewish people? We're no good to anyone if we're dead. Even if it means bowing down to this idol, we need to survive. They could have said, well, we're in Babylon, do as the Babylonians do. We're just trying to fit in so we can say, reveling in our culture, God's going to excuse us. They could have said, okay, we'll bow down, but we're actually not going to worship the idol. We'll just make it look like we're worshiping. Maybe we'll drop something out of our pocket at the right time, just reach down to get it. After all, how many of these thousands and thousands of people around us are really worshiping? Aren't they just going through the motions? We'll really worship Yahweh in our hearts. We'll Just worship the idol this one time. Then we'll ask for forgiveness. No harm done. They could have said, old Nebo has given us some really sweet jobs. I guess we owe him one. Let's bow down to the idol. But they didn't take the easy way out. They knew God could save them. They didn't know if he would save them, but they were determined to obey either way. You see, a lot of Christians believe that the Bible teaches that faith is confidence in a certain outcome. Christians look at the miraculous way God worked in the Bible and say, look at the great faith of these people in the Bible. Look at what happened because of their confidence in a certain outcome. But I want to tell you, that's not true. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not have faith in faith. They did not trust in their belief. They didn't know what would happen to them. Their faith was not measured by the quantity of belief that they could muster up, but by the greatness of their God. Their trust was in God alone. You just have to look at the wonderful Faith Hall of Fame chapter in Hebrews 11 to learn that things don't always work out the way God's people want. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not have a faith that said that God should and will act in a certain way. Faith is not trust in what we want to happen. Faith is trust in God, period. Great faith does not claim to know what only God can know. It claims only to know the God who knows. Biblical faith is trust in God alone. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego show us that faith is not trust in our beliefs. It's not trust in what we want to happen, nor is it trust in our ability to read God's secret will. Faith, quite simply, is trust in God alone. It is simply resting upon the truth that God is God, and we can trust Him no matter what. They trusted God for their future with courage because they believed what God had done and promised in the past. We admire their courage, but listen, we should have even more as Christians because we have a resurrected Lord and the indwelling presence of the Holy Spirit. During difficult days, the great church reformer Martin Luther was asked where he would be if he fell into the hands of his enemies. His answer, I would be in the same place I am now, in the hands of God. Faith knows nothing here can destroy God's promise ahead. Even when He doesn't answer, that's only a comma on the way to the period of final victory. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they teach us some great lessons. First, sometimes we got to face the furnace. Our faith must get us into difficulty. God's not always going to keep us out of the furnace. Psalms 34:19 says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of all of them. We face the furnace knowing whatever the difficulty, God is greater. Christian writer Tim Hansel, one of his books, tells a story about when he and his son Zach were out in the country and they were climbing on some cliffs. His son was above him, and all of a sudden he heard the little voice yell out, "Hey Dad, catch me." Tim Hansel said, "I turned just in time to see my son jumping off a rock above me, straight towards me." He said, "I became an instant acrobat." Caught the little boy. And when he got him on the ground safely, he said, "Zach, can you give me one good reason why you did that?" The little boy was perfectly calm. He said, "Sure, because you're my dad." The little boy's whole assurance was based on the fact that his father was trustworthy. He could live life to the hilt because his father could be trusted. Our Father can be trusted. Second, not only must you face the furnace, but be willing to go into the furnace, leaving the results to the Lord. These three young men left the results to God. They weren't responsible for the outcome, but they were responsible for being obedient to their God. They really had no idea what might happen. I think the little boy who had heard singing in church, and he had got a little bit of the lyric messed up, but his parents overheard him singing, "Trust and okay, for there's no other way." Well, listen, regardless of how this turns out in this third chapter of Daniel, these three knew it was going to be okay. In some of the storms of life, God intervenes and shelters us. There are others, He allows us to be exposed, so we're going to be more pressed closely to Him. This passage raises a question for us. Will we be loyal to God even if He doesn't give us everything we want? Will you be loyal to God even if He doesn't heal your husband's cancer? Will you be loyal to God even if you don't get the promotion you want? Will you be loyal to God even though He's the one who's calling the shots instead of you? God is not some kind of magic lamp you can rub to get what you want anytime you want it. The true God is the all-powerful creator of the universe who has a purpose for our lives that overrules all of our second-guessing and all of our protests. The truest test of your faith is when God gives the answer and the answer's no. When there's no healing, no deliverance, when the house forecloses, when you lose your job, when your loved one never recovers or even dies, and all the while you've been doing what's right, you're honestly trying to live a life that honors God, that's the greatest test. Is your faith still in God when the answer is no? When there's no miracle? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, but even if he does not, we want you to know, will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. These men of faith would not have regarded their deaths in the flames to be a failure of faith, but rather an indication of God's will. Faith means trusting in God and His Word. It doesn't mean that we either know or understand what His specific purpose in our lives may be. It means a ready willingness to follow Him, whatever His purpose. Faith is to believe what we don't see, and the rewards of this faith are to see one day what we believe. Faith in God sees the invisible, believes the incredible, and receives the impossible. God's ways are behind the scenes, but He moves all the scenes He's behind. The journey of faith is developing the ability to trust God when it's difficult to trace God. Last and third lesson. God will always be with us in the fire. Listen, you're going to meet the Lord in the furnace a long time before you're going to meet Him in the sky. The great preacher Charles Haddon Spurgeon says, as sure as ever God puts His children in the furnace, God will be in the furnace with him. Now here's the irony. Did you know that Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego were safer in the flames of the furnace than they were out? The best part about the furnaces of life is that these are the places where we're going to meet God. This is the place where Jesus Christ meets us and makes us into the people He's calling us to be. These are the places where God performs His miraculous work in our life. Oh, but this story does have a great outcome. Verse 24, King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement, asked his advisors, weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? Certainly, O king. Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of God. Well, the question that comes, who is the fourth man in the fire. Many commentators believe, as do I, that this person is very likely the pre-incarnate eternal Christ. Whoever he was definitely the presence, power, and protection of Almighty God. In essence, God was with them in the furnace protecting them. Was it an angel? Was it even Jesus, what we call a theophany? The important point to remember is that the Lord is with them in their fiery trial. If God is everywhere present, he must also be the God in the midst of our burning fiery furnace, whatever form that might take. God is omnipresent in pain, and his presence makes faith possible. C.S. Lewis said, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but he shouts in our pains. Finally, there's no limit to what God will do if we give the glory to him. What happens when the three Hebrew children get out of the fire? God gets the glory. Verse 28 and 29, hey, it's the king, it's Nebuchadnezzar, who launches into a wonderful litany of praise of God. What a change in the attitude of the king. Oh, I tell you, God has the last word. In this story, he uses the exiles to evangelize the captors. Dare to surrender your circumstances to God, and when he works it out, others will give him the glory. There's an old story, but I close with this. A preacher said to a little boy concerning the presence of God, he said, son, I'll give you an apple if you can tell me where God is. The little boy looked up at the preacher, he looked at the apple, and he said, I tell you what, preacher, I'll give you a barrel of apples if you can tell me where God isn't. That's our testimony. Our God is everywhere, making possible the impossible. Even in the midst of the fire, he is there. God is before me. He will be my guide. God is behind me. No ill can betide. God is beside me to comfort and cheer. God is around me. So why should I fear? May God add his blessings to his word. Amen.